Hello, YouTube. Today we're going to be discussing a stock called Innodata, or the ticker INOD. There's been a lot of speculation on this stock over the past couple of weeks and months on online discourse, across Twitter, a lot of different trading platforms, as well as YouTube. Today I'm going to be breaking down if this stock is worth buying, if I recommend the purchase of it, if I recommend trading it, if it's complete garbage, if it's good, what the intrinsic value of this company is. Right now, we have one recommendation from our past couple of YouTube videos. We had SanDisk in our last YouTube video that you can go and watch. We recommended that stock at $580 with a base target of $700 and a bullish target of $725, I'm sorry. Both of those prices were reached in the past 2 weeks, hitting an all-time high last week. And our one other recommendation is BTG, which is still open with a price target of $7. The current price currently is under $4 after it's dropped off the past couple of weeks. But today we're talking about INOD. What is INOD? What do they offer? Okay, so INOD is in the AI space. They're a downstream platform that services and offers services to 5 out of the 7 Magnificent 7 companies. The Mag 7 include Apple, Microsoft, Google, the biggest tech companies in the world. And INOD works with 5 of them. INOD specifically provides services among 4 different revenue segments, providing a multitude of services that make AI more efficient for certain companies that want to implement AI into their companies. It's kind of a mouthful, but it completely makes sense. But we're not even going to really explain that much about the company. You can do your own research. Today, we are finding the intrinsic value of this company and price targets, and if we think this company is a good recommendation or not, according to the guidance of the company, as well as the numbers and statistics on the income statement, balance sheet, cash flows, debt to assets, debt to liabilities, etc. Hopping right into our Excel model. Okay, so first we can see our 4 different revenue segments. The one that stands out immediately is federal and physical AI because there's no historical revenue or no historical data. This segment has just come out as of 2025 and Q3, although it was not reported on their 10K filing. So in their guidance, they specifically say that they're targeting $25 million as of 2026. DDS, Digital Data Solutions, makes up a mass majority of their revenue. As we can see, it almost takes up 90% as of 2025. Agility and Synix make up a very small portion of their revenue. As we can see, all of those are declining historically, dropping from 19 to 9% and 8% to almost 3%. Agility is AI agents, and Synix is in the healthcare industry, specifically implementing AI with hospitals. Total revenue has grown exponentially year over year, with the 2 massive growth years being 2024 and 2025, with almost a 100% jump in revenue in 2024 and a 50% steady growth in 2025. So we are looking at pretty volatile numbers and pretty volatile jumps in revenue and revenue growth, but that's kind of what we're looking at all across the board with these small cap AI companies. A great sign to see on their income statement is their gross margin is pretty much growing across all 3 of the historical revenue segments, expanding from 37 to 38%, from 45 to 54%, and from 10% to 18%, which is a great sign, as well as their profit margins growing exponentially year over year. Getting into our assumptions that are going to drive our forecasting our revenue across 4 segments, because as you can see, we have 96%, 50%, and then we continue a very bullish growth, 50%, 40%, and then steady at 40% for a while. And that's pretty big, jumping from 22 million in 2025 to 1.2 billion in 2030. And how do we come up with those assumptions? So we can see right here, we all have it linked to global data and collection labeling market. So overall, we can see right here, this is their growth that's expected. And how do we come up with this? So this is cited multiple times in INOD's 10K filing, market growth, we can see right here. They cite quite a few different articles and industry reports across 4 different segments, but overall, because they are a data collection and labeling company, that's the closest thing just to the overall market they're in. You can also see worldwide AI and generative AI spending, which is another good article to read if you're interested in this. However, they don't really pinpoint the industry that INOD is in. So hopping over here, we can see this is the actual article, data collection and labeling market. And what they say, same thing back here, is that's a 28% year-over-year growth in this industry. That's what's expected. So we did not model in a 28%, this is the year-over-year growth that is expected to be. We modeled in a lot higher because this company is small. It's a small market cap. They're moving very fast, and they're going to do a lot more than just the industry standard. They're going to do a lot more than the bottom line. So that's why we have this is our growth right here. We have 36%, 36%, 35%, 34%, 34%. This is what we used originally to use our forecast. And then what we did is we followed each segment and we found how each segment moved when revenue jumps and how much that takes up in each revenue. So we can see that DDS takes up a lot, Agility takes up less, and Syndics, we expect Syndics to grow quite a bit and take up more market share. And we also expect Federal to do a lot more than 25 million in the future, especially if they get government contracts, which that's what they're focusing on, and kind of moving into something like Palantir with those government contracts and providing services that Palantir and other companies in the defense sector are currently providing. Now, switching over to our balance sheet, we're going to see that they're very heavy on cash and cash equivalents, which is not very normal for companies in general. They have almost like 40%, a little bit less, maybe like 20% of cash compared to their revenue, which is a major part. However, this company is a service company, which means they don't have that much CapEx, they don't have that much infrastructure. So most of their assets are in human labor, are in the people who work for the company and their expertise. That's why they're so cash heavy. And that's why we also see back in our income statement, I'm not going to show you, but they have a very large part of stock compensation, which is built in with their SG&A. And that is completely normal for emerging growth companies that are growing rapidly to compensate employees who have that expertise and need to stay at the company. You can also see that accounts receivable is pretty heavy. Their liabilities, we have their current and their long-term liabilities, not very interesting stuff. And this is just kind of all framework for our DCF and getting into building our WACC and building our cost of equity and whatnot and actually funding the debt overall. You can look at the total current liabilities compared to the total current assets. Total current assets weigh that pretty heavily because the cash takes up such a large portion. Now getting into our DCF, which is the most important part and the part you've been waiting for the whole time, seeing our actual valuation of the stock and if it's worth buying or not. So we have our EBIT and we have our EBITDA, and that's how we're going to break it down. We have our free cash flow, we have our discounted cash flow, and this is where we get into capital expenditure and our debt. So overall, our capital expenditure is pretty light, obviously, compared to their revenue. A lot of these AI companies invest heavily in infrastructure, and they're actually debt heavy. Maybe they have more debt than revenue, and they're operating at a loss. That is one reason why INOD is very attractive to people who look at this company, is because they have very little CapEx, very little debt, very heavy cash, which seems logically correct, but it's not actually that great. And we're going to break that down in a minute. We can also see CapEx as a revenue, very small portion. Okay, getting back to that. Free cash flow grows year over year. They're negative for 3 years, and 15 million, massive jump, obviously. And we're continuing that growth rate. And this is kind of bullish. This is a pretty bullish model, right? We're jumping 100% going into 2026. However, according to the guidance of the company, which has very, very trustworthy, and I'm going to pop it up on the screen here, they have reached their earnings estimates and their revenue estimates the past 2 years every quarter. So they've hit their estimates every quarter. And if they're saying they're going to have transformative revenue growth and they think 36% revenue growth is too small and not accurate, that's what they state. I'm going to believe that because just following their track record, they've delivered the past 8 quarters. Okay, that's pretty important to build in with assumptions as we go further. Now we're going to look at how we built our WACC, which makes up a large portion of the valuation and has some very important ratios. Along with the high beta, 2.5%, which means this company is much more risky and cyclical. A lot of these companies have under 1 beta, right? SanDisk, the stock we recommended, I think had 1.8 beta, maybe a lot less, but we're going to pop up on the screen as well. It just means that this company moves with the market more or less and is not really moving by itself. It follows the market. As the market's dumping right now, so is this stock most likely, right? So that's kind of what it means. It just shows that it's riskier. And we can see it's kind of linked with their equity. 99% equity financing, almost 0% debt. So it just means that these equity financiers are taking on more risk. And it also means this company is just riskier overall. Without getting into too many details, that is kind of the essence and the essential thoughts in that, okay? The beta is so high. That's from Yahoo Finance. That's from Fins, reliable sources. You can look it up yourself if you don't believe me, because this is extremely high. And when you have a high beta like this, it's going to boost your cost of equity. And the cost of equity makes up a large portion of the WACC because it's so skewed and spiked. So you can see right here, it's 14.66%. Our WACC is only 4% higher than that. 0.4% higher than that. So that's driving our WACC currently. And what that means, back to the risk, is that this company is riskier. It is more cyclical. It's not as safe of an investment where a company is moving by itself. It's following the pack, okay? This company is following the pack in the AI space and in the market in general. So we use a EBITDA method and a perpetuity method. The perpetuity method uses the WACC and the discounted cash flows, okay? And these are our two price targets we have using all of their values. So when you do these methods, what you do is you discount the cash flow back, and that's why you forecast the revenue. So we're not just taking into account the intrinsic value of the company right now, it's taking into account the intrinsic value of the company in the next 5 years and using our terminal growth rate, which is after our 5 years. So even with this very, very bullish growth rate, jumping 100% and continuing a 40% year-over-year revenue growth, which almost seems insane, but it's possible in the AI infrastructure space, and especially with a data bottleneck, it's definitely possible to see a company like this do that, I think. But even with those extremely, intense growth rates, very bullish, the company is still under the current price it's trading at. Why is that? I don't know. It's because I guess they're looking in the future, and I think this company is more valuable than it really is. This company is held by a lot of fundamental investors and a lot of people on Wall Street and big firms. So they're not dumb. They know what they're doing. But this company is also traded by a lot of retail traders, and I think retail traders could get burned on this stock for sure. That's why I'm not going to recommend it. That's the big thing. I'm not recommending it with an average price target of $40. I think if it drops below $30 in the near future, yeah, you could pick up some shares. But I don't think that you're actually buying the stock for the fundamental values. You're buying the stock for their strategic partnerships and the relationships they have with the Magnificent Seven companies like we talked about earlier, and how they work with them and whatnot. If you look at their revenue, it's extremely skewed. I think one investor takes up almost 30% or 40% of their entire revenue, which is kind of crazy. I mean, it's good and bad. If you're working with one of the top companies in the whole world in tech, it's a great thing. However, it also means it's also a little bit riskier. Maybe that's tied to the beta and whatnot, is that they're relying on one or two firms to pay out their entire company. So stuff to think about. I think this is still a good investment, and I don't think this is a bad stock at all. I just don't think that it's fundamentally aligned with my strategies as an investor, and that's why I can't recommend it, is because the intrinsic value of the company, the price targets I've come up with are not above the current price it's trading at. So with all that information, I hope you guys learned some stuff about INOD. If you want to invest in it, if you don't want to invest in it, I have no views on my YouTube channel. I think I have 4 subscribers, which is great, but I'm going to continue to pump out these videos. They're just documentation. I don't really care if people watch them or not. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the comments below. Another great platform that I've been using for quite a while now is StockTwits, and it's kind of like Twitter, but for stock specifically. And it's pretty interesting. You can ask any questions on here, and you can follow stuff in real time and see what people are doing, follow people. It's like Twitter. It's kind of a bunch of banter and people just saying gibberish for the most part, honestly. But it is interesting, and if you want to follow me on there, it's the same name as my YouTube profile. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.